I want you to picture this. An older man is sitting at the dinner table with his family. He lifts his fork, smiles, and starts to tell a story. But then something strange happens. His words come out a little slurred, just for a few seconds. He waves it off, says he's just tired. Everyone laughs. The moment passes. But 3 days later, he has a stroke. A real one. The kind that changes everything. That small moment at the table, that was likely a mini-stroke. And it was his brain trying to warn him before something worse happened. The truth is, these small warning signs happen more often than most people realize. They're called TIAs, or Transient Ischemic Attacks. Most of the time, they only last a few minutes. And because they pass so quickly, people ignore them. They think it was stress, or age, or just a weird moment. But here's what you need to know. A mini-stroke is never just nothing. It's a signal. And if you catch it in time, you might be able to stop a major stroke from ever happening. That's what this video is all about. We're going to go through 8 signs that your body might be giving you. 8 signs that something serious could be brewing inside your brain. And you won't hear them in a rushed medical list. We'll take the time to explain what they really feel like, how they're different from everyday issues, and what to do if they show up. Because when it comes to stroke prevention, information alone is not enough. You need awareness, you need timing, and you need to know what not to ignore. So if you're over 60, or you care about someone who is, stay with me. This might be one of the most important health conversations you have all year. Let's get into it. The first sign to pay close attention to is slurred speech or trouble finding the right words. Now, imagine someone talking and suddenly their words don't come out right. They sound jumbled or unclear, or they start saying something completely different from what they meant. It can be just one sentence. It might last only a minute. And then, they're back to normal. It's easy to think they were just tired, or maybe nervous, or maybe they just stumbled over their words. But in older adults, this kind of sudden change can be something much more serious. When a mini-stroke happens, even if it's brief, it can interrupt blood flow to the areas of the brain that control speech and language. That means the person may still be fully awake and alert, but their brain can't connect the words properly. They might try to say something simple like, "I'm going to the store," but it comes out as, "I'm store to the going." Or they can't say anything at all, even though they know what they want to say in their head. This is what doctors call expressive or receptive aphasia. It doesn't always last long, but it's a powerful warning that the brain is under stress. Some families notice this right away, especially if the person is usually very articulate. Others may dismiss it as stress or aging. But what makes this symptom dangerous is how subtle it can be, and how fast it comes and goes. There's also something else to watch for. If a person becomes frustrated while trying to talk, if they pause, look confused, or try again and again to get the words out, that's another red flag. They may be aware something feels off, but can't explain it. What matters most is timing. Any sudden trouble with speaking, especially in someone over 60, should be treated seriously, even if it gets better quickly. Because with mini-strokes, the symptoms often fade fast, but the risk doesn't. This isn't about overreacting. It's about recognizing that the brain doesn't stutter for no reason. And when it does, even for a few minutes, it might be reaching out for help. So if you hear someone speak strangely out of nowhere, don't brush it off. It could be the first and only chance to stop something far worse from happening. Sign number 2 is sudden confusion or disorientation. This one can be tricky because it often looks like something minor. A person forgets where they put their keys, they pause in the middle of a sentence, or they suddenly seem unsure about where they are. For older adults, moments like these are easy to mistake for simple forgetfulness, or just a senior moment. But when confusion appears out of nowhere and feels stronger than usual, it deserves attention. What separates a mini-stroke from normal aging is how fast it happens. 1 minute someone is thinking clearly, and the next they seem lost in their own home. They might forget names they use every day, misplace familiar words, or seem unable to follow a basic conversation. It can feel like a fog has dropped over their mind. This confusion is a sign that part of the brain responsible for memory and processing has been temporarily affected. A mini-stroke can briefly cut off oxygen to those areas, making it hard to think, plan, or even understand what's going on. It's especially easy to miss if the person is already dealing with mild memory loss. Family members may assume it's just part of getting older. But here's the key. When the change is sudden, when it's different from their normal pattern, that's when it matters most. You might see them stare blankly at the television, or ask the same question over and over, or forget the names of people they've known for years. These aren't just mental slips. They're possible warnings that the brain didn't get enough blood for a moment and that a major stroke could follow. One of the hardest parts is that the person might not notice anything is wrong. That's why caregivers and family play such a vital role. You're often the first one to see the change, and when you do, it's not the time to wait and see. It's the time to get help. Because even if the confusion fades, the risk stays. The brain has a way of sending quiet signals before something big happens. Confusion, when it comes out of nowhere, is one of those signals. And catching it early can be the difference between a quick recovery and a life-changing event. Sign number 3 is temporary changes in vision. One moment, everything looks fine. And then, out of nowhere, part of your vision disappears. Some people describe it like a curtain falling over one eye. Others say things suddenly go blurry or double, and they can't quite focus. It usually passes quickly, sometimes in a matter of seconds. That's exactly what makes it easy to ignore. But make no mistake, sudden vision problems, especially in older adults, can be a serious warning sign of a mini-stroke. When blood flow to the part of the brain that processes vision is disrupted, even briefly, it can cause changes in how the eyes work, even if the eyes themselves are perfectly healthy. In some cases, it's the retina that's affected. In others, it's the brain's visual cortex. Either way, if oxygen is interrupted, vision can go with it. There's even a specific condition for this kind of episode called amaurosis fugax. It usually affects one eye and may only last a few minutes. But it's a powerful signal that a larger blockage, one that could lead to a full-blown stroke, is possibly on the way. What makes this symptom so dangerous is how easily it can be brushed off. You might think your eyes are tired. Maybe it's the lighting. Maybe it's your glasses. That's the trap. Because the warning doesn't always come with pain or discomfort. It's quiet, subtle, easy to miss. And here's something important. If vision changes happen at the same time as another symptom, like dizziness, confusion, or trouble speaking, that combination should be taken extremely seriously. It's the brain struggling, not just the eyes. Also, don't assume that someone will always mention it. Some people, especially older adults, may hesitate to bring it up. They might be embarrassed, or they might believe it's just part of aging. That's why family members and caregivers need to pay attention when someone squints, turns their head oddly, or suddenly asks why the room looks funny. If someone says the room went dark for a moment, or if they stop mid-task and look confused about what they're seeing, don't wait to find out if it happens again. By then, it might be too late. Vision is more than eyesight. It's brain function. And when it changes without warning, even for a moment, it may be one of the few chances your body gives you to step in before something worse happens. Sign number 4 is unexpected dizziness, or a sudden loss of balance. It can feel like the room is spinning, or like your feet can't quite stay under you. Maybe you try to stand up and feel wobbly. Maybe you take a few steps and need to grab onto something. Sometimes it's so brief you catch yourself. Other times, it leads to a fall. Most people don't think of balance problems as a sign of a stroke. They blame it on low blood sugar, a skipped meal, dehydration, or maybe just getting up too fast. And yes, sometimes those things really are the cause. But when it happens suddenly, and especially when it's not like you, it could be something much more serious. When a mini-stroke affects the areas of the brain that control coordination, like the cerebellum or parts of the brainstem, even a short disruption in blood flow can throw your balance completely off. Your muscles still work. Your joints are fine. But your brain can't process how to move smoothly. It's like the connection between thought and motion gets scrambled. And it doesn't always come with other signs. Dizziness can show up on its own, and that's why so many people ignore it. They sit down, drink some water, and move on. But if your balance was fine yesterday, and today you suddenly feel off, it's not something to brush aside. This kind of dizziness also feels different. It's not the kind you get from spinning in a chair or turning your head too fast. It's disorienting, unsettling. You might feel lightheaded, but it goes deeper than that. You might feel like you're tipping, or like your body is a step behind where it should be. Some people even describe it as a disconnect between their head and their legs, as if their body knows what to do, but can't quite make it happen. If you or someone you care about suddenly starts holding onto furniture while walking, hesitating at doorways, or avoiding stairs when they usually don't, it's worth paying attention. It may be a silent warning that something in the brain isn't getting the blood it needs. Falls are a major concern for seniors, but what causes those falls can be even more important. When balance disappears without explanation, even just for a few moments, it might not be age. It might be a mini-stroke in progress. And that means it's time to act, not wait. If you've made it this far, I just want to say, thank you for caring. These signs may seem small, but recognizing them could make a big difference in someone's life. If you find this helpful, please consider clicking the like button. It helps more people see this important message. And hit subscribe so you won't miss our next videos on senior health and stroke prevention. Now, let's keep going. There's still more you need to know. Sign number 5 is a brief loss of consciousness or feeling extremely sleepy out of nowhere. Now, fainting or suddenly nodding off might not sound like stroke symptoms. Most people think of things like heat, low blood sugar, or not drinking enough water. And in many cases, they're right. But when it happens without warning, especially in someone who's usually alert and active, it can be a red flag. Here's why. The brain relies on a constant, steady supply of oxygen-rich blood to stay awake and functioning. During a mini-stroke, that flow can be briefly interrupted. It might last only a few seconds, but that's enough to make someone feel dizzy, disoriented, or even black out. Sometimes it doesn't look dramatic. It might just seem like the person is zoning out, closing their eyes, or getting really quiet. Other times they may slump in their chair or lose track of the conversation completely. It passes quickly. But the brain has already sounded the alarm. And here's the part many people miss. Older adults don't always describe this as passing out. They might say they were just tired or that they needed a moment. But if it was sudden, if it came out of nowhere, it needs to be taken seriously. There's also a common mistake people make. They think if someone wakes up quickly and seems fine, it's no big deal. But with mini strokes, the damage doesn't come from how long the symptom lasts. It comes from what it means. A temporary blackout is often a sign that blood flow to the brain was disrupted, even if only for a few seconds. In some cases, this symptom is tied to problems with the heart, like atrial fibrillation, which can cause tiny clots to travel to the brain and block blood flow. Other times, it's the early stage of a much larger stroke trying to break through. So what should you watch for? If someone becomes unusually drowsy, suddenly feels weak, or even slumps over briefly, especially if it's out of character, don't assume they just need rest. Check if their face looks different. See if they can answer simple questions. Ask them to lift both arms. Even a small delay or hesitation could mean something deeper is going on. It's not overreacting. It's being aware. When the body shuts down, even for just a moment, it's often because the brain is struggling to stay online. And when that happens, every second matters. Sign number 6 is a tingling feeling, often described as pins and needles, usually on one side of the body. You might feel it in your arm, your leg, your face, or even just in your fingers. It comes on suddenly, without warning. Sometimes it's light and fades quickly. Other times it's sharp and distracting. And just like other signs we've talked about, it often disappears before anyone thinks to do something about it. But here's what makes it different from sleeping in the wrong position or sitting too long. When tingling is caused by a mini stroke, it's not about pressure on a nerve. It's about blood flow being interrupted to the part of your brain that controls sensation. That means the signal itself, the connection between your brain and your body, is momentarily disrupted. And that's no small thing. Most people have felt their foot fall asleep before. That's normal. But when it happens without a clear reason, and when it only affects one side of the body, that's when it becomes concerning. Especially if it's paired with other symptoms like dizziness, slurred speech, or blurred vision. Here's a helpful way to think about it. If you wake up and feel tingling in your arm because you were lying on it, it usually gets better when you move. But if you're sitting normally, doing nothing unusual, and you suddenly feel a strange buzzing sensation, or your skin feels numb or slightly burning, that could be your brain's way of saying something isn't right. And again, it's easy to miss. Older adults often chalk it up to age, arthritis, or circulation issues. But a mini stroke doesn't wait for you to connect the dots. It leaves its warning and moves on. The question is whether you catch it in time. So if you, or someone you care about, feels sudden tingling or numbness on just one side, even if it fades quickly, take it seriously. Don't wait for it to come back stronger. Don't wait for other symptoms to show up. The brain doesn't send random signals. When it speaks, especially through strange physical sensations, it's asking you to act. Because the next time it might not be a warning. It might be the real thing. Sign number 7 is a sudden, intense headache, one that feels different from anything you've had before. It might come on fast, like a bolt. It might feel sharp, pulsing, or strangely located, maybe just behind one eye or across one side of the head. And it may not respond to your usual remedies like rest, water, or over-the-counter pain relievers. The tricky thing is that headaches are common, especially in older adults. Many people have migraines, tension headaches, or even sinus pressure, so they tend to shrug it off. But when a headache appears suddenly and feels unusual, it's time to stop and pay attention. This could be your body's way of alerting you to a mini stroke in progress. During a TIA, the temporary blockage in a blood vessel can create a ripple effect. Blood pressure may rise. Vessels in the brain may react to the disruption. That sudden shift can lead to what feels like a stress headache, but it's not stress. It's a sign of vascular disturbance. What makes these headaches different from the usual kind is how out of place they feel. You might be sitting quietly and suddenly feel a sharp ache behind your eye. Or it might be early in the morning and the pain wakes you up. It doesn't build slowly. It hits. In some cases, the headache is the only symptom, but in others, it comes with dizziness, tingling, or blurred vision. That combination makes it more likely that something neurological is happening, not just a headache on its own. Here's something else to keep in mind. If you're someone who rarely gets headaches and then suddenly experience one that feels strange or out of character, that alone is reason enough to take it seriously. Especially if you're over 60 and have risk factors like high blood pressure or heart disease. Families and caregivers should also pay close attention. If a loved one complains of a headache that doesn't feel normal, ask questions. Did it start suddenly? Does it feel different than usual? Are they having trouble speaking, standing, or seeing clearly? The sooner you recognize that this isn't just another headache, the sooner you can act. Because in the case of a mini-stroke, that sharp pain could be your only warning, and missing it could mean missing the chance to stop something far more dangerous. Sign number 8 is sudden weakness, often on one side of the body, affecting the face, an arm, or a leg. This is one of the most recognizable signs of a stroke. But when it comes to mini-strokes, the weakness often fades quickly. That's what makes it so easy to dismiss. Maybe someone smiles and one corner of their mouth droops. Maybe they try to lift a cup and their hand trembles or feels heavy. Or maybe their leg suddenly feels weak, just for a few steps. Then, just like that, it passes. Everything seems fine again. But those few seconds matter more than you think. During a mini-stroke, the brain briefly loses control over the muscles it normally guides with precision. Even if the person stays fully conscious and alert, that brief loss of strength tells us that blood flow has been disrupted, and the brain is struggling to do its job. This kind of weakness is often one-sided. One arm can't be raised as high. One leg drags. One side of the face doesn't respond the same way. That asymmetry is a key clue that something in the brain isn't firing the way it should. It's important not to confuse this with general tiredness or long-term conditions like arthritis or nerve pain. Those come on slowly and feel familiar. This kind of weakness is sudden, unexpected, and strange. That's the difference. There's a simple way to check in the moment. Ask the person to smile. Look for unevenness in their face. Ask them to raise both arms. See if one arm drifts downward. Ask them to say a simple sentence, and listen for clarity. These quick checks are part of what's known as the FAST method: face, arms, speech, and time. It's a tool you can use right away, even before the ambulance arrives. And yes, with a mini-stroke, the weakness might disappear. But don't wait to see if it comes back. Because the next time, it might not stop at weakness. It might bring permanent damage. So when someone suddenly can't move part of their body like they usually do, even for a minute, take it as seriously as you would if they collapsed. The brain doesn't lose control for no reason. It's a message, a warning. And the earlier you act, the better the outcome. Now that you know the warning signs, it's just as important to understand who's most at risk, because mini-strokes don't just happen randomly. They usually develop from a mix of underlying health issues and lifestyle habits that build up over time. One of the biggest risk factors is high blood pressure. Over the years, elevated pressure weakens the walls of blood vessels, making them more likely to narrow, clog, or burst. And in the brain, even a small blockage can have serious effects, like a TIA or a full-blown stroke. Next is diabetes. People with diabetes often have damaged blood vessels, especially the small ones in the brain. That makes it easier for blood flow to be disrupted and harder for the brain to recover quickly. High blood sugar also increases inflammation, which only adds more pressure to an already fragile system. Another major risk is atrial fibrillation, or AFib. It's a type of irregular heartbeat that can cause small blood clots to form in the heart. If one of those clots travels to the brain, it can temporarily block a blood vessel. And that's exactly how many mini-strokes begin. Other heart conditions like valve disease or a history of heart attack also raise the chances. Why? Because the heart and brain are part of the same system. If blood isn't moving smoothly from the heart, the brain is one of the first places to feel the impact. And of course, lifestyle choices matter too. Smoking is one of the most damaging habits when it comes to blood vessel health. It causes vessels to narrow, promotes clotting, and reduces oxygen in the blood. If you smoke and you're over 60, your risk of stroke, mini or major, is significantly higher. Obesity and a sedentary lifestyle also increase risk by raising blood pressure, disrupting blood sugar, and putting more strain on the heart and circulation. Over time, this leads to the perfect conditions for a mini stroke to occur. So what does this all mean? It means that TIA risk is not just about age, it's about how the body has been cared for over the years. It's about patterns, how we eat, how we move, how we manage stress, and whether we're addressing chronic conditions properly. The good news is that risk can be reduced, but it starts with awareness. Knowing where the threats are coming from helps you take the right steps to stay ahead of them. And if you or someone you love falls into any of these risk categories, now is the time to be proactive, not scared, but prepared. So now that we've walked through the warning signs, the big question is, what should you do if one of them happens? The answer is simple. Act immediately. Don't wait. Don't second guess. Don't try to see if the symptom goes away. Because with a mini stroke, time isn't just important, it's everything. These symptoms might only last a few minutes. That's what makes them so dangerous. People feel a little off, then feel better, and decide not to call anyone. But what they don't know is that many major strokes are preceded by a TIA, sometimes just hours or days before. That small episode could be the only chance to prevent something much worse. So what should you do? First, remember the FAST method. It's one of the simplest, most effective tools we have for spotting a stroke or mini stroke in real time. F is for face. Ask the person to smile. Does one side droop? A is for arms. Ask them to raise both arms. Is one arm weaker or drifting downward? S is for speech. Ask them to say a simple sentence. Does it sound slurred or strange? T is for time. If you see any of these signs, it's time to call emergency services right away. You don't need to be a doctor to recognize something's wrong. You just need to be present, pay attention, and trust your instincts. If something feels off, suddenly and without explanation, it's better to overreact than to miss your window to intervene. At the hospital, doctors can use tests like CT scans, MRIs, or carotid ultrasounds to quickly figure out what's going on. The sooner they see what's happening, the sooner they can take action, whether that's medication, observation, or preventive care to lower the risk of a future stroke. And here's the thing. If it turns out to be nothing serious, that's okay. But if it is a mini stroke, early treatment can literally change the course of someone's life. You wouldn't ignore chest pain, right? You'd call for help. The brain deserves that same urgency. So whether it's a loved one, a neighbor, or even yourself, if any of these signs appear, don't wait for things to get worse. Don't hope it'll pass. Pick up the phone and get help. Because in that moment, your action might be the reason someone walks, speaks, or remembers tomorrow. By now you know what to watch for, but the real power lies in prevention. And the truth is, most mini strokes don't have to happen at all. There's no magic pill, but there are proven steps that, when done consistently, can dramatically lower the risk. It starts with 3 words: manage your health. First, work closely with your doctor to control high blood pressure. This is number 1. Even small reductions in your blood pressure can lower your stroke risk significantly. Take your medications exactly as prescribed, and if you haven't checked your numbers in a while, now's the time. Next is blood sugar management. If you have diabetes, keeping your blood glucose in a healthy range protects your blood vessels and reduces inflammation. That means fewer chances for blockages in the brain. If you've been diagnosed with atrial fibrillation, don't ignore it. Your doctor may recommend blood thinners to prevent clots from forming and traveling to the brain. These medications might sound intimidating, but they're often what stands between a warning sign and a life-changing event. Now let's talk about what you can do at home. A heart-healthy diet plays a huge role. Focus on foods that reduce inflammation and support circulation, like leafy greens, berries, nuts, olive oil, and fatty fish like salmon. Cut back on processed foods, sugary drinks, and too much salt. Exercise doesn't have to mean running marathons. Even a 20-minute walk every day can improve blood flow, reduce stress, and help regulate your weight. Movement keeps your blood vessels flexible and responsive, and that matters more than you might think. Quit smoking if you haven't already. This one change alone reduces your risk more than almost anything else. And if quitting feels overwhelming, talk to your doctor. There are more tools available today than ever before. Also, be mindful of alcohol. While occasional drinking might seem harmless, excessive or frequent alcohol use increases blood pressure and weakens vessel walls over time. And finally, keep your medical appointments. That includes regular checkups, blood work, and routine screenings. Prevention only works if you stay engaged. Catching small changes early gives your doctor a chance to adjust your care before things escalate. It's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. A few small decisions, made every day, can protect your brain, your memory, your independence. The goal here isn't just to avoid a stroke. It's to keep living the life you love, on your terms, with clarity, strength, and peace of mind. We've covered a lot in this video. 8 signs that might seem small, but each one could be the brain's way of whispering, "Something's wrong." A whisper you don't want to ignore. Because here's the truth. A mini stroke is not the main event. It's the warning before it happens. It's a moment where the body gives you a chance to act, to prevent damage, to protect everything that matters: your movement, your memory, your voice, your independence. The signs aren't always dramatic. They don't always come with pain. And they almost never give you a second chance. That's why awareness is so powerful. Maybe someone you love has brushed off a strange symptom before. Maybe you've done it yourself. But after today, you'll know better. And that knowledge could change everything. If there's one lesson to take away from this, it's this: don't wait for things to get worse. If something feels off, if something seems sudden, strange, or unlike your usual self, say something. Do something. Get help. Because catching a mini stroke isn't about fear, it's about time. And when you act early, you're not just saving a brain, you're preserving a life, a future. So stay alert, stay informed. And most importantly, stay in charge of your health. If you found this video helpful, I hope you'll take a moment to like and subscribe. It helps us reach more people who might need this information, and it lets us keep making videos that matter. And if someone you care about is over 60, share this with them. You never know, something as simple as a short video could help them catch a silent warning before it's too late. We're all in this together. Staying informed, staying aware, staying well. Thanks for watching, and take good care of yourself and your loved ones.